Why do newborns cry at night? 7 reasons every parent should know. Have you ever looked at the clock and seen the hands pointing exactly to 2 in the morning while the rest of the country seems to be fast asleep? You are still pacing back and forth in a small, and you just finished a feeding. You changed a clean diaper. You checked to see if they were too cold or too hot. You gently swayed, sang a lullaby. Finally, after nearly half an hour, your baby is asleep. You carefully lay them down in the crib, trying not to make a single sound. You breathe a sigh of relief, thinking you might finally get some rest. But just a few minutes later, that familiar cry rings out again. If you have ever experienced nights like these, first of all, I want to tell you one thing. Almost every parent across Canada has felt that exhaustion, worry, and even helplessness when their baby keeps crying at night without a clear reason. Many people start to blame themselves. Did I not feed them enough? Is my baby sick? Those are all very normal thoughts for any Canadian parent. But in most cases, a newborn's cry is not a sign of a serious problem. In fact, crying, before they can talk, point, or show emotions through facial expressions, babies have only one way to communicate with the world around them, that is crying. Every cry, maybe they are hungry, maybe they are uncomfortable, maybe they are tired, or sometimes they simply want. The most important thing is not just making the baby stop crying as fast as possible. The most important thing is understanding why they are crying. When you understand the cause, you will feel much calmer instead of panic. You will know what to look for, what to do first, and when you truly need to call your family doctor or HealthLink at 811. In today's video, we will explore 7 common reasons why newborns frequently cry. I will also share simple, safe, and effective ways to handle these situations for babies in their first few months of life. I hope that after watching this, every night spent caring for your baby will feel. Instead, you will feel the confidence of a parent who understands what their child is trying to say. So let us start with the first reason, which is also the most common, and that is It sounds very simple, but this is often what confuses parents the most. As adults, we can eat one meal and stay full for many hours, but for a newborn's stomach is extremely small. On the first day after birth, a baby's stomach is only about the size of a small cherry. Even at a few weeks old, the amount of milk they can hold in each feeding is still very limited. Because of this, breast milk or formula is digested quite quickly. This causes many babies to wake up every 2 to 3 hours to feed again. This is completely normal. Many parents worry because their baby wakes up constantly at night and think they have a sleep problem. Actually, in the first 3 months of life, waking up several times to feed is a very common sign in health. In fact, many Canadian pediatricians encourage parents to feed on demand rather than trying to force a rigid schedule. An interesting thing is that most babies do not cry the moment. Before that, they usually give off very small signals. They might turn their head looking for a breast or a bottle. They might suck on their hands. They might open their mouth repeatedly, or they might start squirming more than usual. These are called early hunger cues. If you recognize these signs and feed them right away, the feeding session will usually go much more smoothly. On the contrary, if you wait until they are screaming to start feeding, they may be too hungry, too tired, and too frustrated to latch. Perhaps you have also seen this situation. Just yesterday, they fed about every 3 hours, but today they want to feed almost every hour. This makes Actually, it is very likely that your baby is entering a phase called cluster feeding. There is something very interesting that many parents do not know. Cluster feeding often happens in the late afternoon or evening. The baby may feed many times in a row, making you feel like they are always hungry. Even 10 or 15 minutes after a full feeding, they might demand more. This easily makes, but in reality, in most cases, that is not the case. This is a completely natural biological mechanism. When the baby sucks more, the mother's body receives signals to produce more milk to meet the baby's growing. So, If your baby is still gaining weight well, having enough wet diapers, and the doctor confirms their development is normal, you should not worry too much. However, if you just fed your baby, they burped, slept for a bit, and then woke up crying, it is possible the cause is no longer hunger. Now, let us look at the second reason, which is gas and abdominal discomfort. This is one of the most common reasons why newborns fuss in the evening. A baby's digestive system in the first few months is still very immature. Every time they feed, besides milk, they also swallow a certain amount of air. This is especially likely if the baby feeds too fast, cries before feeding, or does not have a proper latch. That air can get trapped in the stomach or intestines, creating small gas bubbles that cause a feeling of pressure and discomfort. Try to imagine the feeling of being bloated after eating too much. Even adults find it uncomfortable, let alone a baby only a few weeks old. When they have gas, babies often show specific signs. They might pull their legs up toward their chest. They might squirm constantly. They might arch their back. They might clench their fists. Some babies sleep soundly, but wake up suddenly and cry for a long time just because of a gas pain. Luckily, in most cases, you can help your baby feel better. After every feeding, hold your baby upright and patiently burp them. Do not rush to put them down right after they finish eating. Many babies need about 10 to 15 minutes. If the baby still seems uncomfortable, you can gently massage their belly in a clockwise direction. This is the natural direction of the large intestine and can help gas move more easily. Some parents also find success by gently moving the baby's legs in a bicycling motion. The important thing is to keep every movement very gentle. You should not press hard on the belly or try to force a burp. If the baby is bottle-fed, you should also check the nipple size. A nipple that flows too fast can cause the baby to swallow a lot of air. Conversely, if the flow is too slow, the baby has to suck very hard, which also increases the amount of air going. For breastfeeding mothers, pay attention to the baby's latch. When a baby latches deeply and correctly, the amount of swallowed air is usually significant. The good news is that gas issues will gradually improve over time. As the digestive system matures, the abdominal muscles get stronger and the baby starts moving more. Trapped gas will decrease. If your baby is between 1 and 3 months old and frequently fusses due to gas, remember that many other families are going through the same thing. But strangely, there are days when the baby feeds well, burps well, and has no bloating, yet they still cry when night falls. The next cause might surprise many parents. That is, the baby is overtired. One of the most surprising things for parents to learn is that sometimes a baby cries not because they are not sleepy enough, but quite the opposite. They are overtired. It sounds a bit confusing, right? Usually, we think that the more tired someone is, the easier it is to sleep. This is true for adults. After a long day of stressful work, we can just lie down and fall asleep quickly. But for newborns, everything is completely different. When a baby stays awake longer than their body can handle, their brain starts releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones keep the body in a state of high alert. As a result, the sleepier the baby gets, the harder it is for them to actually fall asleep. Perhaps you have witnessed this situation. The baby keeps rubbing their eyes. They yawn many times. Their gaze starts to drift, but instead of falling asleep, they scream intensely, squirm constantly, refuse to lie down, and cry the moment they are playing. That is a classic sign of an overtired baby. In the first few months, a newborn's wake windows are actually very short. A newborn can typically only stay awake for 45 minutes. After that, their body already needs to rest. If parents try to play with the baby for too long, take them to many places, or expose them to too much sound and light, their delicate nervous system quickly becomes overwhelmed. And the result is when night comes, instead of sleeping soundly, they cry more. This often happens in the late afternoon or early evening. Many parents call this the witching hour. After a day of exposure to so many sounds, lights, new faces, and completely new experiences, the baby's brain needs time to process all that information. If the amount of stimulation exceeds their ability to cope, they react by crying. It is not because the baby is being difficult. It is not because they want to challenge their parents. Simply, their nervous system is still learning how to adapt to the outside world. To help your baby sleep easier, you do not need complicated methods. The most important thing is creating a bedtime routine. For example, about 30 minutes before bedtime, dim the lights in the room. Turn off the television. Lower the volume on your phone. Speak more softly. If there are many people in the house, try to keep the environment quiet. Some babies love a warm bath before bed. Others prefer being held close to hear their mother's heartbeat. Some babies find comfort in white noise, a fan, or a very soft lullaby. It does not matter which method you choose. What matters is maintaining it consistently every night. After a while, the baby's brain will form an association. Whenever the room gets dark, whenever the familiar music plays, whenever they are swaddled or held in a certain way, their body will understand that it is time for sleep. Do not feel pressured if today they sleep perfectly, but tomorrow they stay up all night. Newborn sleep does not follow a straight line. There will be days they sleep a lot. There will be days they only take short naps. That is completely normal in their development. However, there are cases where the baby is full. They have been burped. They are not gassy. They are not overtired. Yet, they still cry, especially whenever they are put down on the bed. If you have faced this, the reason might be much simpler. The baby just needs to feel safe. During 9 months in the womb, the baby was always surrounded by warmth. They constantly heard their mother's heartbeat. They heard the sound of blood flowing. They heard a familiar voice. The space in the womb was small, but it provided an immense sense of security. Then one day, the baby enters the outside world. Everything changes. The light is brighter. The sound is louder. The temperature is different. There is no longer that feeling of being held tight everywhere. To an adult, a soft crib might be a very comfortable place. But to a baby only a few weeks old, it is a completely strange and vast space. Because of that, many babies only sleep well when they are held. As soon as they are placed in the crib, they wake up and start crying. This does not mean you have spoiled your baby by holding them. In the first 3 months, experts often call this the 4th trimester. Simply put, after birth, the baby still needs extra time to adapt to life outside the womb. That is why holding your baby, comforting them, speaking softly, or letting them feel your warmth is not spoiling them. It is how you help them build their first sense of security in life. Many studies show that babies whose needs for comfort are consistently met often feel more secure as they grow and eventually learn to self-soothe better. But there is another very common cause at night that parents often overlook. That is a diaper that is too wet, or the baby is feeling too hot or too cold. A wet diaper might be a small thing to an adult, but for a baby only a few weeks old, that sensation can be enough to wake them up. A newborn's skin is much thinner than an adult's. Their skin is also more sensitive to moisture, temperature, and the friction of clothing. Just a slightly full diaper, a bunched-up shirt, or a small seam rubbing against the skin can cause discomfort. That is why many babies sleep soundly and then suddenly wake up crying, not because of hunger, not because of a tummy ache, but simply because they are uncomfortable. When your baby cries at night, take a few seconds to check their diaper. If the diaper is full or too wet, change it with very gentle movements. Many parents have a habit of turning on bright lights, talking loudly, or changing the diaper very fast because they are afraid the baby will get cold. But sometimes that wakes the baby up completely. If possible, use a dim nightlight. Speak in a very low voice. Keep every movement slow. Let the baby understand that it is still nighttime, and after the diaper change, they will go back to sleep. Besides the diaper, room temperature is also a very important factor. There is an interesting thing. Many parents are always afraid their baby will be cold. And because they worry too much, especially during our cold Canadian winters, they dress the baby in many layers. They add blankets. They put on hats. They put on socks. They even keep a heater on all night. But in reality, newborns get overheated more easily than we think. If the room is too hot or the baby is wearing too many clothes, they will become uncomfortable, sweat, and not sleep deeply. Conversely, if the room is too cold, they will wake up repeatedly because they cannot stabilize their body temperature. The ideal room temperature for most newborns is usually between 20 and 22 degrees Celsius. Of course, this number is just a reference. The more important thing is to observe your own baby. Many parents have a habit of touching the baby's hands or feet to see if they are cold. Actually, this is not accurate. A newborn's hands and feet are usually cooler than other parts of their body because their circulatory system is still developing. Instead, gently touch the back of the baby's neck or their chest. If that skin is comfortably warm, not sweaty, and not cold, the baby is likely fine. One more thing to note: not every baby likes being swaddled the same way. Some babies sleep very well when lightly swaddled, because it feels like the womb, but others prefer to have their arms and legs free to move. As a parent, you will gradually realize what makes your child most comfortable. Do not worry if your baby is different from someone else's baby. Every baby has their own personality from the very first days. Some are sensitive to light. Some are extremely sensitive to sound. Some get uncomfortable with just a little heat, while another baby might sleep soundly in the same conditions. There is no single formula for every baby. The most important thing is observation. The more time you spend observing, the better you will understand your child. And one day, just by hearing the first cry, you might be able to guess exactly what they need. This is a skill almost every parent learns over time. However, there are nights when you have checked the diaper, adjusted the room temperature, fed the baby, burped them, and held them for a long time, yet the baby still cries inconsolably. At this point, many parents start to feel extremely worried. Is my baby in pain somewhere? Did I miss something? And this is when we need to talk about a more important cause. That is, the baby is not feeling well or showing signs of a medical issue that needs attention. Reason number 6, the baby is unwell and needs parental attention. So far, we have talked about very common and mostly harmless reasons: hunger, gas, overtiredness, the need for affection, wet diapers, or improper temperature. Those are things almost every family in Canada will go through in the baby's first few months. But as a health professional, I always want parents to remember that sometimes a cry is the body's way of sending a distress signal. And our job is not to play a guessing game. It is to know when that cry is still within normal limits and when it needs a doctor's evaluation. The first thing you should do is observe the baby as a whole. Instead of just focusing on the cry, ask yourself, is the baby feeding like usual today? Are they alert when they are awake? Is their skin tone healthy? Do they have a fever? Are they vomiting a lot or having diarrhea? Is there anything different from their usual self? Sometimes just a few minutes of observation will help you realize the issue is not about sleep. It is about the baby's health. For example, a baby with a mild stuffy nose. For an adult, a stuffy nose is a minor thing, but for a newborn, it is different. In the first months, babies primarily breathe through their noses. Just a little congestion makes feeding much harder. The baby sucks for a few minutes and then has to stop to breathe. Then they cry, then they feed again. This repeats over and over. At night, when they lie down, mucus settles more easily, making them more uncomfortable. If you notice the baby sounds congested, has trouble breathing, or is feeding poorly, you can talk to your doctor about using saline drops to clear their nose. Besides congestion, some babies might have an ear infection. This is more common after a baby has a cold. When they lie down, the pressure in the ear changes, causing more pain. That is why many babies seem fine during the day, but cry intensely at night. If you see your baby repeatedly pulling at their ear, crying a lot when lying down, or having a fever, take them to the doctor. Another reason that is not uncommon is acid reflux. Actually, many newborns have physiological reflux. A little spit up after feeding is not unusual. But if the baby frequently spits up a lot, arches their back after feeding, cries for long periods, has poor weight gain, or coughs a lot at night, they need to be evaluated by a doctor. Parents should also pay close attention to body temperature. If a baby under 3 months old has a fever of 38 degrees Celsius or higher when measured rectally, this is not a situation to treat at home. Take the baby to a medical facility or emergency department for a checkup as soon as possible. This does not mean every fever is dangerous, but because such young babies have immature immune systems, doctors need to find the cause carefully. There is one thing I always want to emphasize. You are the person who spends the most time with your baby. You know them better than anyone. If one day you feel that the cry sounds very different today, or something feels wrong today, do not ignore your intuition. Intuition is not always right, but it is worth listening to. If you feel worried, call 811. Call your family doctor or take the baby in. It is better to go and find out everything is fine than to stay home worrying all night. Reason number 7. Sometimes newborns cry simply because it is a part of growing up. This is perhaps the hardest thing for many parents to accept because everyone wants a clear reason. Everyone wants a solution. They want to know that if they just do thing A, the baby will stop crying. But reality is not always like that. Between 2 weeks and 3 months of age, many babies go through a phase called developmental crying. Across Canada, we often call this the period of purple crying. This is not a disease. It is not because parents are doing something wrong. It does not mean the baby is in pain. Simply, during this stage, the baby's nervous system is still developing. The baby is more sensitive to all stimuli, and crying is the way they release emotions that they cannot express in any other way yet. Characteristics of this stage are that the crying usually appears more in the late afternoon or evening. It can last for tens of minutes, or even several hours, and then the baby is completely normal again. They still feed well. They still gain weight. They still sleep. They still smile. They still develop according to their age. This leaves many parents feeling extremely confused. They think they must have missed something. They change diapers. They feed. They hold. They rock. They change positions. They walk around the house. They play music. They try everything. But the baby still cries. If you have ever gone through that feeling, I want to tell you something. You have not failed. You are not a bad mother or father. There are times when the best thing you can do is not trying to stop the crying immediately, but simply being there with your baby. Hold them. Stay calm. Let them know that no matter how they are feeling, there is always a safe pair of arms beside them. This is also very important for parents themselves. If you have been holding the baby for hours, tried everything, and feel completely exhausted, place the baby safely in their crib for a few minutes. Take a deep breath, drink a glass of water, wash your face, ask a partner or family member for help if possible. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. An exhausted parent will find it very hard to care for a baby in the best way. Do not try to be a perfect person. Be a person who is calm enough, patient enough, and always ready to learn with your baby every day. If you are watching this video in the middle of the night, maybe you are still holding a baby who refuses to sleep. Maybe you just pulled another all-nighter. Maybe you are wondering if you are doing a good enough job. I want you to remember one thing. No mother or father is born knowing exactly how to care for a child. We all learn every day, through every cry, through every sleepless night, through every moment of worry, and also through every first smile from your baby. A newborn's cry is not always a sign of illness. In most cases, it is the only way for the baby to say, "I need help. I need to be loved. I need to feel safe." Every time you patiently hold your baby, gently comfort them, and observe every small change, you are building the most precious thing in your child's early years. That is the feeling of being loved and protected. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video until the very end. If you found today's information helpful, please hit the subscribe button, like, and share, so other parents can also find this reliable knowledge. If you have any questions or want to share your story, please leave a comment below. I always read them and will try to answer as many as possible. I wish you and your family many more peaceful nights, and I wish your baby health and a life full of love and gentle care. See you in the next video from Baby Health Hub. Thank you for your support and for being a part of our community. Happy parenting.